Okay, so take three. I'm so over Zoom tonight. At least it worked for my class. Obviously it's me, Heatherine. I am sorry for the state of literally this address. But I am down to crunch time and Zoom is not on my side. Just talked to Blackboard recently, must have. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna try and move through what I remember. The first part will probably come pretty quick because I've only done it times. So multidimensional family therapy or MDFT, y'all know I love my acronyms, is an integrative, evidence-based model that focuses on adolescents struggling with substance abuse by addressing the multiple domains of their lives. Essentially, MDFT is like a systems-based intervention that doesn't just treat the behavior of that individual or isolate them in that way, but rather it encompasses the entire support network, their family, their school, their peer groups, and even the legal system. Now, we're obviously all psychology majors, so we understand the foundation and the support that a network can set up for someone. So, including, especially for an adolescent, including this network in their healing and in this intervention is paramount. I will say from my experience, rather limited on the crisis intervention end, but pretty prevalent in my dual diagnosis career. I've seen firsthand how addressing just one part of this equation, we'll say, for example, the child's behavior, without engaging the family or the support network, often leads to repeated episodes, just basically a loop of instability and often the same negative responses slash interactions, right? MDFT is empowering to that individual, that adolescent or youth, and their family to change these familial interaction patterns, social interaction patterns, enhance communication skills, and improve often parental monitoring, all while helping basically build on whatever underlying issue is present. For instance, let's look at, we just discussed substance abuse and we looked at those models. And if we're going to connect the dots, let's connect concepts for a second. Let's kick it. So let's say we connect the dots to the models that basically were very, very immersed in not just focusing on the addict or the addict's behavior, but the impact and the overall ripple within their family. And so, obviously, within substance abuse, within adolescent therapy, we can see how this network and including this network is beneficial. The outcome provides it provides the adolescent with the ability to learn and explore healthier coping mechanisms, um, to help, we'll say, mold, and teach better decision-making skills. It's a flexible model that really honors the complexity, um, of real life struggles. It also really ties in to this last chapter, we're talking about the different effects of our substance abuse and the impact, not just on the addict, and the treatment, not just for the addict, but for everyone else. I think that MDFT is really probably a gold standard, especially when dealing with adolescents and youth. And I think I really learned this. I mean, I had an inkling of it for our DON. Kate was very, she was great, but she was a huge advocate of it. And when I took adolescent guidance and then again advanced adolescent guidance in the master's program, I can say definitively, like through those discussions, ding, 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 but through those discussions, I really started to see so much more of it in application. I mean, I had recognized it here or there, but once I really realized it was the gold standard, and once it really got set in my mind and I understood it, I really started not just to see the value of it, but I started to see where it was incorporated so I could actually see the positive outcome that it has. Okay, I could talk all day about MDFT and little Kate Jr. on that. Anyway, Dr. Kate, be so proud. Um, let's do SFBT or our solutions focused brief therapy. I think we were comparing that to the 12-step philosophy, so I'll just open with the SFBT is rooted in the belief that clients are the experts of their own lives, and the 12-step philosophy is really more based in I don't want to say religious, but a spiritual context. Um, and so when you have these two lined up together, now I won't say that one is the end all solution and that the other is outdated, or that, you know, one is better than the other. I will say that I believe deeply and truly that SFBT is is preferable because especially in cases where you have clients that have trauma that is encompassed through loss of agency or loss of control, or at least feeling that they've lost control or had that taken away from them. It really allows clients to take center in their healing and their own life, and it helps them gain and realize they possess the tools to create the change that they need. And this autonomy being given back to them is a true catalyst to really motivate them to continue on through treatment. Um, the focus is really based on constructing solutions rather than dissecting these problems. And that can be a hugely positive impact in treatment. The 12-step philosophy really does contrast this. Obviously, it's 12 steps. It emphasizes powerlessness over addiction. Um, I'm sorry. I'm trying to appear not to have a bias. I mean, I don't want to have a bias. I just mean that I'm hoping that I don't I think I've already failed. But essentially, uh, it encompasses a lifelong recovery. It really pushes the idea that once an addict is in recovery, they're always in recovery. There's never an end date. There's no pressure. You know, every day is something new, and there's a reward system, obviously. And you are, in essence, surrendering your control to a higher power. And for some, that is beneficial. Uh, through my own academic and clinical journey, I've noticed that while the 12-step approach can be deeply transformative for many, it really has been, particularly those who resonate in the spiritual frameworks, it can also have the effect of feeling disempowering or inaccessible for others, especially those who don't work within those frameworks, spiritual frameworks, I mean. So, for example, clients who have history of trauma involving your control, coercion, or abuse and loss of autonomy, they can feel more validated and hopeful with SFBT's approach and gifting back of agency, a sense of agency, which it will build on this. newly found autonomy and help build up these strengths and coping mechanisms and present successes, no matter no matter how small. Everything matters. Um, might have to go look at this question again. Gosh. I think I just conditioned myself to the first few questions. Now Zoom's continuing. So I'm just knock on wood. I don't want to turn off again. Okay. All right. I am literally in the twilight zone. I do not know what's going on. But um I know what this is. It is. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If I cry, just ignore me. I'm gonna make it through this. This is just a question that I think really hits home considering um some current personal growth that I'm experiencing. We'll put it that way. But to start with, uh, viewing problem drinking through a behavioral lens really allows us to focus on observable actions, the consequences, the reinforcements, rather than applying these moral judgments or indicating there's any kind of internal or outward flaw. Um, it gives us a framework for understanding drinking behavior, a basis as something that's learned and maintained through patterns of reward or even avoidance. Yes, I'm gonna go with that. Or avoidance. I really need to quit saying them, but this is a hard one for me, guys. So for me, the reason why this hits close to me is I have a best friend of 7, 8 years who I was fortunate enough to meet when I was coming out of what I call my trauma cocoon. I went through very dramatic, sorry, very traumatic. It was dramatic too, don't get me wrong, but very traumatic series of years in an abusive relationship. And I kind of, when I left that situation, I needed a minute, and my very young children at the time needed a minute and just kind of cocooned us up. And in that process, I isolated us. At the time, I felt it was what we needed. I needed to get us stable and consistent. And when I came up for air, when I felt like, the natural break of when I felt safe, I guess you could say, came out, I met this person and really bonded. We really clicked. And through the years, we've been friends for several years now. Um, we we have our flaws. We're human. But recently her behavior, which includes problem drinking, was addressed by her now newly legally adult child. And being what my major is, I'm very honest. I don't try to hurt feelings, but I'm that friend that wants to help you, not enable you. I will leave you be, but if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer, especially when it involves her using alcohol to numb anxiety, and other inward distress, as well as a toxic relationship that she's currently immersed in. Um, we ended up discussing her behavior, the possibility of her meeting criteria for being an alcoholic, excuse me, as well as um, trying to identify and, sorry, trying to identify those triggers and discussing developing healthier alternatives. Anyway, needless to say, it she was not ready to hear what I had to say. Lesson learned, of course. But I will say that. this really encapsulates for me. Okay, I definitely need a drink. But this definitely encapsulates for me this this idea of looking at problem drinking through a behavioral lens really helps take away the idea that the person is the problem, and it helps highlight that the behavior is the problem. And this has many trickle-down effects. For instance, it helps make relapse less stigmatizing. It becomes a lapse in behavior rather than a character flaw. And I think this usually, maybe not in the way for me, I'm sure I did something wrong, or perhaps she just really wasn't hearing it, but usually it reduces shame. And this can encourage people to continue to engage in treatment or to re-engage in treatment. Keeps that motivation there and that positive perspective on treatment, I think. Uh, excuse me. Okay, so I think we're in. Hold on. I want to say that we're in behavioral couples therapy, and how this therapy addresses substance use as a shared concern. Again, that kind of takes me back to the substance abuse and how we were looking at rather than just treating the addict, we were also treating the ripple effect and the impact on those around the addict or substance user. Shouldn't just say addict, but I meant substance user. And this can really highlight uh, that there is a shared concern within the relationship. And rather than making this a singular issue, as identifying who's at fault and who really has the substance use issue. So I think you could say one of the more beneficial and even powerful aspects of BCT is the ability to create accountability while also fostering connection and maintaining it. Um, Not necessarily shared blame, but it really kind of removes blame and really just tries to isolate not just the issue, but the symptoms of this issue. And one of the symptoms, of course, is going to be a rift in a relationship. And so couples can work together to improve communication and really reinforce this connection through agreed upon behaviors that can help rebuild trust. So as this person is getting substance use intervention and really building up coping skills and really identifying their own triggers, they're also simultaneously being able to rebuild that relationship with their partner, um, both professionally and personally. In many ways now, I've seen how substance use can tear apart even the strongest of partnerships. And even when only one partner is in treatment for the substance use. Um, this imbalance can lead to blame or it can lead to resentment building up. It can lead to codependence. BCT really brings both people to the table in the theme, the overarching theme of a partnership. I'm using air quotes a lot today. Sorry, guys. But not only to support recovery, but to refine and possibly redefine that relationship itself. I think that it really helps shift their narrative from, that familiar fixing the addict to healing and healing the relationship, which at the base level, at the core, on a foundational sense, really is key. Um, I don't know what the last question is. I'm gonna have to get out of here. Look, I can only see my own face. Um, okay, where is, sorry, guys. Uh, let me, um, oh, sorry. Okay, so personal reflection. All right. Man, I had a good one prepared. It's all after all the Zoom issues. I'm literally like speechless. But so substance abuse, obviously, for those of you that know me that have read my discussions, has had a noticeable ripple effect in my own family. That's my family that I grew up in. That's my children and my ex, that family. Even the family that I've chosen, my friends, my best friend, obviously. So I really, I've grown, both I grew up and I've grown as a person and even as a professional, watching how unaddressed mental health and um, mental health issues and the stigma around it, especially the modern day stigma, seeking help, especially for addiction, can go unchecked for years because once you have that label, it's really hard to kick. And so that really dampens the motivation to seek treatment. It can make relationships distant, emotionally unsafe, even I'd go as far as to say toxic. As someone who's now really deeply invested in both the psychological and medical sides of care, which is, I mean, this is part of why I'm pursuing both psychiatry and educational psychology. I think that being able to recognize this, not just keeping that self-awareness, but really keeping that awareness for your family and your friends, it's imperative. I mean, I say that as I think I was sounding more remorseful on like question three, but the truth is, I don't regret what happened. I think that she'll grow from it. I just think that I had to remove myself from it. Um, from a provider perspective, I think that that can be tantamount being able to know, um, especially being us in a both personal and professional context. We really have to remove that provider perspective from our own lives. But I just don't think it's possible to remove everything we've learned, everything that's become a part of us in the process of learning and growing within this field, especially, those of us are, you know, soon to be graduating. We're about to be out in this field, out in the wild, as they say. But I think that even then, I find as I conversate with sometimes even our own professor, that if you don't really start to understand who you are and not just as a person, but as a provider, and if you don't make sure that you understand that those two people are different, if you don't know how to turn it off when you come home, that's a boundary you need to learn to set. If you don't know how to stay professional and keep a distance, from your own clients. It's a boundary you have to set, And as I learn this, as, I continue, especially through this class, I think I've had a lot of reflective journey, but I can say that I have managed to learn coping skills on my own, but I think I've started to understand the weight and the value of these coping skills, and that I don't just have to assign them where I learn them. I can utilize them across a platform, an array of instances. And so, coping skills like boundary setting, obviously, therapy, journaling, immersing myself in my education, using my discussions and my assignments as cathartic and therapeutic releases. That's unofficial. I'm probably gonna get a no-no look for that. But I mean, I do that because I wanted to get it all out before I entered the field. And I think it also helped me understand where I drew that line from, provider perspective to personal perspective so that I could function in our field the best of my ability, to the best of my ability. I really tried to keep, I mean, I think I'm going on like 17 years now of working in advocacy work, and I've been in the educational and the academia field for many years, countless years. And I've learned the value of creating emotionally honest spaces in my work, in my home, uh, as a coworker, um, in my space, in my own space, even as a parent, well, especially as a parent, I apply conscious discipline. I was really terrified of taking child guidance and adolescent guidance because I thought I'm really going to find out how terrible of a parent I am. But I actually was oddly validated, but I did learn a lot. I did learn some places where I could change things that I didn't realize I was doing that were toxic. You really, for me, I really get in these classes and I really take a step back and I can really reflect. And so I want to model transparency and resilience rather than silence and shame. And I think throughout this whole experience, as I'm graduating, I can say that now, I really have succeeded in that more so than I ever could have hoped. And for those of you that are still continuing on, um, I wish the best for you, and I hope that you make this experience your own. No matter what any professor or any peer tells you, make it your own because you are the one who benefits from that. And when you benefit and you go out in the field, your clients benefit from that. I think in wrapping up, I'll say that these therapeutic models and the lenses offer diverse ways to approach substance use. Obviously, it's not going to be a one size fits all diagnosis, but it's a deeply individual and um, relational struggle, whether through the multi-dimensional systematic change, the strength-based brief intervention, you have your behavioral insight or lens, um, couples therapy, the core of healing really remains the same. It's fostering connection, it's safety, it's accountability, it's autonomy in your own healing. Uh, I'm off my soapbox now. And Zoom lasted the whole time. I can't tell you how thrilled I am. But thanks for watching. And I look forward to hearing how these models resonate with you and your own experiences. And for those of you we'll be graduating soon, congratulations. For those of you that are staying on, you've got this. I believe in you. Um, I hope you guys have a great summer and toodaloo.